All right, if you've just joined us, you're watching Newslink on DSTV channel 403. Now, the KZN ANC has announced its preferred top 6 candidates. That's ahead of the National Elective Conference in December. Zweli Mkhize is their candidate for president. Paul Mashatile has gotten the nod for deputy president. Let's discuss this now with political analyst Bheki Mngomezulu. Mr. Mngomezulu, good morning and thank you very much for your time. Interesting developments there. It seems that they're endorsing Zweli Mkhize as opposed to NDZ, in as much as we would have seen that statement last night from former President Jacob Zuma. It seems to have not swayed this particular region any differently. They want Zweli Mkhize. Can you just give us your take on just this top 6?
No, thank you very much for that question, Fundo, and good morning to your viewers. First of all, I must say that I'm impressed by the manner in which the leadership of KwaZulu-Natal has handled this nomination process. Firstly, they indicated that they wanted branches to have a say in the entire process, which is in line with the ANC practices historically, the way some of us understand it. So that is one thing that should be commended, they should be commended for. And then with regards to the nominations or the nominated candidates, there is also something very impressive what they've done here, because they've indicated that they are not inward looking, but they are taking this forthcoming conference in December as a national conference. And as a result, among the nominees, they have a number of people from different provinces. They have Stanley Matabata, they have Phumulo Maswale, they have Paul Mashatile, Nomvula Mokonyane, which is very, very good, in fact, in terms of reshaping the ANC. Now, with regards to Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma and Dr. Zweli Mkhize, I'm on record saying that if the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal were to nominate both candidates for the same position, for me, that will amount to a political suicide, which would mean a repeat of what happened in 2017. And I'm happy that the province is saying that they are supporting Dr. Zweli Mkhize, so that at least they have one candidate for the presidential position. And when they negotiate and lobby other provinces, they will be doing that from a strong position, in the sense that they will not be presenting two candidates for the same position. As for the statement you made, which is said to have come from former President Jacob Zuma, I think that in 2017, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma did a sterling job in terms of giving the current president a good run for his money. But there are people who seem to hate former President Zuma with a passion for reasons known only to them. So with him endorsing Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, for me, that was not a plus. I was saying, in fact, to your other fellow members in the media space, that for me, what former President Zuma was supposed to do this time around was just to keep quiet. And then if branches nominate Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, as what 32 did, let that be done by them without him saying anything, because people who hate him would then, in a way, not vote for Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma. So I think the ANC has read the political space as well.
And I think that is a very interesting and probably legitimate observation, that there still is that concern around the former president. So anybody that would be endorsed by him would then also just somehow raise the ire of others. So it's not very easy for them to endorse such a candidate. But beyond that, some just say, in politics, a day is too long. The political climate changes all the time. It's very fluid. So she should have never even expected that she would enjoy the same amount of support like she did 5 years ago, because there are new entrants. I mean, Paul Mashatile for deputy president this time around, there's quite a lot that has changed significantly.
No, absolutely. And in fact, the same goes for the president, by the way. Because in 2017, there are people who held him in high esteem, and some were even saying that because he's coming from the business sector, then he will be the messiah who's going to save the ANC and then subsequently save the country. And the opposite is true. Many things have gone wrong between 2017 and now. So which means even the president himself is no longer standing on the same footing that he was in 2017. There are a lot of things that have happened. In fact, putting aside even the Phala matter, delivering on the mandate that was given to him and his administration in 2017, people are starting to ask themselves the question, was it the right choice? At the time, indeed, it might have been the right choice. But would it be the right choice to give him another chance? I'm not too sure about it, because a number of people, even from within the ANC, are starting to ask questions about that. when they look at the current state of the country. It is not of his making, by the way, but things are happening under his administration, and people are starting to say he has failed to address ESCOM, for instance, which is the engine of the South African economy. If ESCOM is not operating, then everything else falls by the wayside. You can forget about improving the economy, you can forget about job creation, you can forget about a lot of other things. So then Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma in 2017, President Cyril Ramaphosa in 2017, and these two candidates in 2022, it's a different structure altogether.
Not so long ago, Professor, we had a debate. There seemed to be those closely aligned to the current president, Cyril Ramaphosa, who had raised concern around Paul Mashatile occupying two very key positions. He was continuing in his role as TG, but then also acting as SG. And they said that this would somehow place him at a greater advantage than others. Is this now, this type of nomination that we're seeing, perhaps legitimizing that particular argument that perhaps it has worked in his favor because he was able to interact with branches as acting SG, and they perhaps somehow his character or his form of leadership resonated with them?
Not necessarily. In fact, Paul Mashatile holds three positions. He holds the position of being the Treasurer General of the ANC as per the election in 2017. And then, of course, with the suspension of Paul Mashatile, and then he occupied that position of acting SG. And then, of course, when Jesse Duarte passed on, he then occupied that position of being Deputy SG. So basically, he has been holding those three positions at the same time. Of course, some might then say he's someone who is power hungry. They might come up with all kinds of labels. But the reality is that he didn't give himself those positions. So if he's guilty, the organization is equally guilty. There's been a concern, for instance, from one of the NEC members saying that the person who's supposed to be acting is in fact the chairperson of the ANC, that is Gwede Mantashe, but that did not happen. Then the question arises, were these NEC members not aware of that clause of the constitution of the ANC, the very same organization over which they are presiding? So those are some of the critical questions. As to whether Paul Mashatile has used these three positions to amass power, I cannot in fact agree to that particular line of thinking, although I don't dismiss it, but I don't agree with it, because even if you hold those positions, there are people who have independent minds who can still decide whether to agree with you or not, because it's not as if you are imposing yourself on the structures of the ANC. You may contact people whether or not we are occupying those three positions.
Paul Mashatile as well as Stan Mathabatha seem to be preferred candidates for these two particular key positions on the top six for both KZN as well as Gauteng. If we are just to assess Gauteng's slate, which just only differs with the president, with them preferring Cyril Ramaphosa for a second term. If we look at Stanley right now, what do you think are his chances of actually ascending? Because it seems he is getting some sort of endorsement across the board.
No, Stanley Mathabatha is one of the key contenders for whatever position for which he is nominated. But I think there is something that doesn't settle well with me in as far as Stanley Mathabatha is concerned. Because I've made this point several times that for me, when he made a pronouncement during January 8th statement that he would like President Ramaphosa to return as the president of the ANC, for me, I thought that that was out of line, because no nomination process had been given to the branches or the provinces by the NEC of the ANC, which is in fact the deciding body of the ANC. And he's a member of the NEC, he should know better about that. But he made that pronouncement. And on many occasions, he has said things claiming that they come from the province without even holding either a provincial conference or even having a branch meeting, and then would make an announcement. But putting that aside, I think that he's a good contender and is in fact standing a better chance to be elected into the position for which he is nominated.
And then just in closing, we have the suspended Secretary General who still insists that he is going to contest. If he is nominated, he will stand for whatever position he's nominated for. What do you make of his political career now? Because it seems, yes, everybody is following the rules. They are not to nominate those that are suspended. But nevertheless, it seems there's very little conversation about him in most of these provincial imbizos or discussions around the leadership come December 2022.
You know, Mfundo, there is a statement you made earlier on when you said that one day is too much in politics. Anything can still happen. Remember that even though you have these nominations that we have just had from different provinces, that doesn't cast the issue in stone, because anything can still happen. There is lobbying that is going to happen between now and December. But even on the day, you have an opportunity to nominate someone from the floor. We've seen this happening during the regional conferences. We've seen this happening during the provincial conferences, and there will be nothing different in December. So anything is still possible. And then the other point to consider as well is that the step-aside resolution is not settling down well with a number of people, including the one that has been made by Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma recently, that it is divisive. Let's say then, hypothetically speaking, during the conference, when they finalized the policies they discussed in July, then the majority then says, let us put this thing aside, the step-aside resolution, let us put it on ice and then nominate people if the delegates feel that such a person should hold a particular position. And then Ace Makhashule's name comes up, and then it gets support, he can still get a position. So anything is possible up until such time that we know these are the final people who have been elected, not nominated. These are people who have been elected at the December conference. So anything can still happen.
It's going to be an interesting 2 months leading up to that all-important conference. Mr. Mngomezulu, thank you very much for your time this morning. That's a political analyst, Bheki Mngomezulu.